going to be packed out. I'm so excited about this call, guys. Are y'all fired up?
I'm fired up for March.
Yes.
March is gonna be awesome.
March is game on, right?
Okay, perfect. All right. So as more people keep coming on, this is going to be an exciting call. And if you've joined us on our MVP Mondays in the past, it really is centered around the focus of who the company is at its core, and really comes down to our 12 core values. And every week we try to go over one core value and really kind of dig into that core value, whether it's greatness or valiant or be believing or whatever that value is. And we kind of dig into that. Well, tonight we're going to kind of go over all of them. And one of my kind of new friends, I kind of see him as a friend. He's been a friend of mine my entire life because I read many of his books. I dived into a crash course in him over the last week and a half since we actually chatted, and just reminding all the things that I've learned from him over the past, him and other people. And he's just a person that, when you meet somebody and at their core, you're like, we're going to really get along. That's how our guest speaker is tonight. We have a couple of his books here with us. And we were on a 3-hour trek back from back from Houston this week, and so we were in the car and just listening to all the things that he has, and all the books and all the things we're going to go over tonight are around what he's done in not really just the direct sales space, because he has operated in that space, but it's more on the personal growth and development space. And we thought the best way to kick off March, kick off a new month, is with him. His name is Chris Widener, and I'm going to read his bio before we get started because, I know him as an author, a speaker, but when I saw his bio and I really started understanding all the accomplishments he's done, what he's done, it really is amazing. Especially, I think I'm 90% done with lasting impact and just where he came from. And I think maybe he was my youth pastor when I was a kid. We're still trying to figure that out. I'm not really sure. But here's his bio. Chris Widener has been named one of the top 50 speakers in the world. Joining us tonight is a member of the Motivational Speakers Hall of Fame, named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers. He is the author of 22 books that have sold millions of copies in 14 languages, including a New York Times bestseller, which actually is my favorite too, Chris, which is Angel Inside, How to Create a Life, is Angel Inside. That's my favorite book. The new book is Lasting Impact, How to Create a Life and Business that lives beyond you. He's personally mentored by someone that you've probably heard us talk about a lot on these calls, which is Jim Rohn. If you want to know personal growth and development, there's a lot of people out there. Jim Rohn is probably the easiest person to go to because he was in that world when personal growth and development was kind of at its infancy. And Chris Widener got to spend, I think, 7 years, kind of the end of Jim Rohn's speaking career, and really wrote the last book that Jim Rohn came out with, which is 12 Pillars. If you don't have this book, go get it tomorrow or tonight or as soon as we get off here, because this is an amazing book that he wrote with Jim Rohn. And we're just going to kind of have a fireside chat with Chris, which I think is kind of, not the norm for him. He's used to speaking on stages to thousands of people, but we're really excited to kind of have him on here tonight and for him to just share some cool stuff. So with that, I want to introduce and have Chris come on, and just maybe, Chris, if you could fill me in on anything that I missed out on. I'm not sure what parts of your story that you like people to know about as well as we kind of dive in tonight.
No, that was a fantastic introduction. I appreciate it very much. I got to spend the last 7 years of Jim Rohn's life working with him. I have an audio program called Mentored by the Master, 7 years with Jim Rohn. I think you got that recently, and that's sort of some stories there. But I had the great fortune of working in the early 2000s. I worked with 3 of the legends in our industry. I started out ghostwriting for a guy named John Maxwell. And then Jim Rohn called and they said, we want you to ghostwrite for Jim. And I said, I'm done ghostwriting. I'll write it, but I want my name on it. And so I did that. And then within a couple more years, I ended up co-hosting Zig Ziglar's television show. and it's called True Performance. In fact, you can still see that. You can still see that on YouTube. If you do Zig Ziglar True Performance, you can find that. People say, "How long ago was that?" And I say 30 pounds ago. So you'll get to see that. But sometimes people say, you know, how did you build such a big speaking business? And I say it's really simple. It's just 3 steps. First, have John Maxwell call you. Second, have Jim Rohn call you. And third, have Zig Ziglar call you. And once you get that nailed, you're in business. So I did catch a lot of, you know, pretty lucky breaks in the early days. I was 35, 36 when that happened. And so that was really great. And it's been a great life. I've seen a lot of great people, and you know what? I do large events, 25,000 people, but I do lots of 12 people Zooms as well. You know, I always decided early on. I was a pastor, and I started a church from scratch. We started with 6 people. And in 11 years, we ended up starting 3 churches with about 1,700 people in attendance every Sunday. But I learned in those early days when there was hardly anybody in church, you know, when we were first starting out, that it doesn't matter how many people are there. It matters that you touch the people who are there. And you never know who's there. My first church in Mendham, New Jersey, by the way, it was a small little church to start with. It was, when I first got there, I think it was 40 or 50 people. But those 40 or 50 people were some of the biggest business people in the world. And so when we helped and encouraged them, we helped and encouraged lots of other people. And then the church that I was at in Issaquah, Washington, was a suburb of Seattle and shared a border with Redmond, where there's a little tiny company in Redmond called Microsoft. I realized that we were influencing a lot of young families and young business people who were making a difference really in the lives of a lot of people, and had influence in the lives of a lot of people. One of the men that went to my church is Jeff Bezos, personal pilot. If Jeff is in the aircraft, Ned is flying it. And so one of the things that I teach in that book, Lasting Impact, is that it's not just your influence, but it's who you influence and who they influence. And so I realized early on that you can have a group of 10 people, but those people might have a huge influence. And so our job is to influence the people that we're influencing. So I'll take almost any gig, right? If somebody says, come and talk to us, I'm in for the most part. So happy to be here tonight. And I was looking around for the fireplace when you said we were going to have a fireside chat, but no, it's fun to be here with you.
Well, I'm just really excited too, because, you know, one of the things I've learned in my career is if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And, you know, when briefly on that call, you know, the first thing I call with our company, it was like the first thing I asked. And most people might go, well, I'm afraid of him saying no or whatnot, but I just wasn't. I really wanted to have you kind of speak into people because you have such an array of experience. And I really think, you know, having a home-based business is very similar to building a church. It has very similarities to it. And so all the things that I've learned from you, and really I've learned over the last week and a half from you, really kind of just diving into all of your material. I know she can attest that's all I've read and listened to the last week, and her too. She dived into Lasting Impact, and we've got 2 other books we're really excited about diving into as well. So just want to thank you so much for that. But tonight, it really is kind of like a fireside chat, because hopefully we have some time at the end where maybe we could open up for some questions from the crowd and everything. But I really wanted to kind of ask some specific questions about, because I'm going through a lot of your material, and I'm noticing a lot of overlapping trends and themes throughout the material, which I love, because I just think the more you hear something in different ways, the more it goes solidly into your life. But the first thing I want to talk about was kind of your bestseller, you know, Angel Inside, is because in that book, I really love your books too, because especially 12 Billers, Angel Inside, I know that kind of has a connection with Jim Rohn, but it's a parable type story. It's more of an entertainment type thing. And if you're a personal growth junkie like myself, sometimes it feels like you're reading textbooks all the time. And when you read a book listened to Angel Inside, it just takes you on that journey and it digs in a little bit deeper for you, I think sometimes. So I would definitely encourage anyone to go grab any of Chris's book, but Angel Inside, 12 Pillars, and New Lasting Impact are just kind of the ones that I really love right now. But in that book, what it's all really about developing and finding what your passion really is to go, okay, this is what I want to do in my life. And I think sometimes that can sound really overwhelming to people. They're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow.
Right.
Never mind how I'm going to pursue my passion. And I think network marketing and home-based business is kind of a way to maybe open that door to the possibility of someone pursuing their passion. You go, ooh, I can do this part-time. So I wanted to see if maybe you could share either some action steps or some ideas that if somebody's watching this video, either live or recording, they could say, you know what, I'm going to put this to paper. I'm going to start to develop and look and find what my passion is. What would you tell somebody if they said, you know, Chris, how do I do that? How do I figure out what my passion is and how do I go down that path?
Yeah. Before I answer that question, you said something earlier that I popped something into my brain about how doing a church and doing a network marketing business are similar. And when I left, I was a youth minister in Mendham, New Jersey. And when I left to go start my first church at the age of 25, in fact, when I ended up on the board of our denomination, my very first meeting, I showed up and they said, "Hey, before we start, does anybody have any questions?" And I said, "Yeah, I got a question." And they said, "What's that?" And I said, "I want to know who was in charge of letting me start a church when I was only 25." But I got some great advice from the pastor of that church in New Jersey. He sent me a little card, and all it said on the card was, "Remember, you're growing an oak tree, not a squash." And I have remembered that since 1991, 30 years. You're growing an oak tree, not a squash. And a lot of people would love the squash because it gets really big really fast. But a squash eventually rots, right? And it dies and it falls apart. Whereas an oak tree will take you a lot longer to grow, but eventually you can live under it, you can swing from it, you can, whatever, right? And if more network marketers got that worldview, we'd all be better off. So that was I liked that when you said that, because I thought it's so true. There are a lot of similarities. But in terms of finding your passion is interesting in that, sometimes people say, do what you love and the money will come. I don't know that I really agree with that, because if your passion is teaching octogenarians how to crochet, you're probably not going to make a lot of money at it. It might be something that thrills you to death and probably thrills them to death, but you're probably just not going to make a lot of money at it. So I think we need to separate this idea that passion is what we do for work. There might be an auto mechanic who he's good at fixing carburetors, but his passion is coaching little league baseball. He pays the bills by being an auto mechanic, but he lives for the Wednesday nights and the Saturday mornings, right? And so I think there's a number of different things that you can sort of ask yourself. What is it that energizes me? What is it that makes me thrilled? Sometimes it's, what is it that makes me cry? I've noticed in terms of charity and things like that, I can hear about all sorts of things that are whatever, people in need or bad situations or whatever, and I recognize them mentally, but emotionally, if I see a poor little kid, I follow. I can watch the dog, the Sarah McLaughlin ads, and I realize it's not, it's terrible or whatever. But boy, if you show me an ad of a little kid starving to death, I literally will cry at a television commercial, right? And so my money goes there. Whereas my son runs a very large business for dog rescue people, women and men who love dog rescue, right? And he's very passionate about that. And so you have to find the thing that makes your insides churn a little bit. Did we die? Did the
Oh, we're good. We're good. Sorry, I was directing the screen and everything. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. I thought, I wonder if the screen froze or something like that. Yeah, I think you really just kind of have to dig deep. And here's my belief is that different people have different passions, right? Something that makes you really passionate, I kind of go, there's people that are passionate about NASCAR. And I go, you're going to sit for 3 hours and watch cars go around in a circle? That sounds like something it's just not anything I'm interested in or passionate about. The funny thing is, I grew up going to horse racing, which is just horses going around in circles, and I loved it. So, different people have different passions. I think the thing coming from the angel inside is let it be your passion, not somebody else's passion. And the subtitle of that book is Michelangelo's Secrets for Following Your Passion and Finding the Work You Love. And in that book, the interesting thing about it, there's a lot of history. I actually call it faction. It's not fiction, it's faction, because there's a lot of history in that book. And Michelangelo's dad wanted him to be a politician. Most people don't know, but citizen legislatures, the whole concept of citizen legislatures really grew in Florence, Italy in the late 1400s, early 1500s. That's where Machiavelli, who wrote The Prince, he was one of the guys in the Florence legislature, and politicians were held in high regard, unlike how they are today. They were held in high regard, and Michelangelo's dad wanted him to become a politician. And he said, no, I'm going to go be an artist. And artists were not held in high regard at all. They were sort of seen as, just goofing off and those kinds of things. And so you think if Michelangelo would have followed his dad's passion for his life instead of his own passion for his life, he left home, I think, at 14 or 15. One of the wealthy arts patrons took him in and helped him. And he, of course, became arguably one of the greatest artists / sculptors of all time. We got one of the greats because he followed his passion instead of a guy that probably we would have never heard his name had he followed his dad. So there's a lot of people who do what they're told rather than what they want to do. And so you have to find out what it is your mark is going to be. And that's part of Lasting Impact, the new book as well. You're going to make your mark if you're doing what you were created for and what God intended for you to do and what he gave you gifts for. People ask me, do you ever get nervous speaking? Never. I just don't. I remember speaking at Rupp Arena in the University of Kentucky, and I'm a huge basketball fan. I was more thrilled looking at the rafters at all those University of Kentucky championship thing. I was more, in awe of those than the 17,500 people in the seats. In fact, right beforehand at those big events, if you've ever been to them, they actually have people with clipboards and headphones, and everything works on the minute. And I was standing just off the stage, and the CEO was giving his speech, and the introduction, our next speaker, Chris Widener, blah blah blah. And I remember turning to the woman who was obviously already on edge because she's managing all this stuff. I looked at her and I went like this. I went, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And she says, are you kidding me? And I said, yeah, I'm going to be good. And she just went, I cannot believe you did that. But if they had me sing the national anthem, I'd be terrified because I can't sing. But you find out what I believe that your passion is usually wrapped around in something you're good at that also thrills you. I love to speak. I love to show up and talk. I pretty much give the exact same speech every single time. In fact, I have 2 speeches on YouTube that are about 11 years apart that sometimes when I'm teaching speakers, I'll tell them, pull them up in separate browsers and hit play at the same time. And I think they're 11 years apart. And you will get 90% of the same content. And the funny thing is, the last time I did it, I enjoyed it as much as the first time I did it. I still think the stories are funny and interesting and all those kinds of things because I love it. I'm passionate about it and I'm good at it.
Well, I think what I hear you saying too, it's like, I think people come into a home-based business and they're like, I'm going to make this my passion, when that necessarily doesn't have to match, but it is about going, I'm going to follow my passions. And by doing that, I'll get better at my home-based business too, because I'll live a better, more fulfilling life. Because I think a lot of people, they cross-section those and they're like, oh, I'm in a health and wellness company. I'm gonna be passionate about health and wellness now. Well, that might be your business. That might not be the angel that's inside you. That might just be what's going to lead you there.
I was going to say, I think it's like a tool to lead you to your passion, right? Or help fund your passion.
Absolutely. And if you find a lot of the top income earners, They're when they start making that kind of funny money, or as we were just in the U.S. Virgin Islands with one of the top women of all time in network marketing, her and her husband and another couple. We just went down there, and you know, when they started making money, she's not saying, you know what, now that I've got all this money, I'm just going to pour it all back in, and I'm just going to. No, they're opening orphanages all over the world, right? And you know, I look at my friend Phil and Sarah Robbins, and I think she may be one of the top income earners in the whole industry now. He's into men's ministry around motorsports. I mean, whether it's motorcycles or Porsches or whatever, and he puts guys in those things, and that's what they do, right? So you'll find with the top income earners, you realize that the business was a vehicle for their passion. It wasn't necessarily their passion. Because who says, you know what I want to do? I want to be on the phone and make 100 calls a day and get told 90. I want to get told 97 times, no, please don't call me back. Who's passionate about that? You're passionate about the three and helping them build their business and build their life and make that money and make that difference, and then take it and use it for your passion. So I think you're dead on there. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, also you talk about, we're going to get to your passion too here in a little bit, because I think your journey has been one to get you to where you are today. And I think it almost, or at least it feels like to me, you're starting another chapter where you are really speaking into people a certain specific way. And I think you've refined that over the last, 30 years or so being in this industry. You figured out what your passion is, and now you're pursuing that with on top of all the other things you were doing. I mean, because that's why you are an author, why you are those different things, is to create that income that can lead you to where you really want to be. And I think that kind of goes right into the next question I had for you, because 12 Pillars was a really cool journey to take. I kind of felt like as soon as I started reading, I'm like, this is Jim Rohn, isn't it? With in terms of the old guy and everything like that. It was a really cool thing. And I kind of felt like I was walking alongside that story, which I really loved about it. I mean, it was extremely well written. So kudos to you on the writing of that.
Although the house in that book was mine. So
oh yeah,
similar.
The 12 Pillars, is that the one that fell into the river? Is that the one?
Yeah, it didn't have 12 pillars, but everything about it was really the house that I lived in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that book was really a journey of a guy going from, I know absolutely nothing, but I know I want more, to getting to that point where he had all the tools and everything he needed to do that. And so I think that's one of the key things that at least our group, a lot of people on this call is, what do I focus on? Because there's so many distractions out there. Do I get good at this? Do I get good at that? Do I get good on the phone? Do I get good at Snapchat, Pinterest, whatever the thing is now? What do I get good at? Where should I focus? Because you've been around, again, like you just said, vacationing with, I know who you were with, and vacation with people that have built multiple 7-figure businesses. So a thing or two about home-based businesses. What would you say to somebody that says, Chris, okay, now I know how to start talking and thinking about my passion, and I think a home-based business might get me closer to there, but what do I focus on now? Do I have to read lots of books? Should I get on the phone? Should I go for no? What would you say, you should really focus on this as somebody that's coming into this industry, or maybe wants to reinvent themselves in this industry too. But what's that key thing that you believe someone wants to be successful in this business as a real business? What should they focus on?
Well, you said something earlier that some people say to me, and I clarify that. A lot of people say you do so many different things. And I would say I do have a lot of irons in the fire, but they're not really different things. They all fall under the umbrella of a mission statement I wrote for myself 30 years ago. And my mission statement is, I will use my writing and speaking skills to help other people turn their potential into performance to succeed in every area of their life and achieve their dreams. So it focuses on what things I'm going to do, writing and speaking, and the outcome, helping other people turn their potential and performance, succeed in every area of their life and achieve their dreams. So everything that I decide whether I'm going to get involved in it or not falls into under that mission statement. If it's something that I wouldn't be using those skill sets, I don't do it. If it's something that isn't going to help me achieve those things of helping other people, I don't do it. So when you look at the 5 or 6, different things that I'm involved in, you will, once you look at it under my mission statement, you go, oh, he really only does one thing. He uses his writing and speaking skills to help other people. I don't do this, 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 and this. I do this. I help other people turn their potential into performance, succeed in every area of their life, and achieve their dreams. So when people are interested in getting involved in a home-based business, what should they do? Well, I think the first thing is they have to decide that it's a long-term prospect. One of the nice things about being the keynote speaker at 500 network marketing conferences over the years is I end up going to the pre-conference dinners or the chairman's circle or whatever. I end up sitting at tables with people making $100,000 a month, $200,000 a month, $300,000 a month, and I get to hear what they did. And they were very focused. There's a statement that a lot of companies use, or a lot of people will say, we are really a personal development company disguised at a fill in the blank company, right? We're a personal development company disguised as a makeup company or a health and wellness company or a insurance company or whatever, but it always stems from improving your life. In 12 pillars, we say that income is seldom greater than your own personal development. Jim Rohn always used to say, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And so it's important for us to understand that personal development and growing is what's going to expand your capacity. Jim used to talk about selling. If when you start out, you're not very good at selling, and 2 out of every 10 people you talk to sign up for your business, or maybe only 2 out of 10 people will even watch the video or get on a 3-way call. That's okay. But if a year from now, you're still only getting 2 out of 10 people, it means you haven't grown. You haven't built your own influence skills. You haven't learned to communicate better. You haven't learned to, and so the idea is wherever you are is okay. It's just not okay to be there a year from now or 6 months from now. Or, if somebody says, well, here's where I'm at, that's okay. That's where you're at. But the great news is you don't have to be there. I know that you're really into fitness, right? And if somebody shows up 60 pounds overweight, okay, that's what we're working with. But if you're still 60 pounds overweight 3 months from now, either I'm not a very good fitness instructor or you're going home and eating popcorn and ice cream. Something's breaking down here, right? Wherever you are is okay, but you just don't want to be there 3 months from now. If you only have one person on your team right now, that's okay. It's not okay if you only have one person on your team 3 months from now. I mean, it still might be okay. It just means you're not growing. And this is a business where you need to grow personally. Sometimes I'll be at these conferences, and a lot of times I'm not hired by the company. I'll be hired by, one of the top income producers, and they'll bring me in for a Super Saturday or something. And I'll say, how many of you would like to have Joe's check? And what does everybody do? Yeah, the whole crowd. Yeah, we want to make the money Joe makes. And then I ask a follow-up question. How many of you are willing to do what Joe's done every day for 20 years? Crickets. Like nobody wants to do that, right? Because we have this a couple of myths. The myth of the superhuman. Well, he's better than us. She's better than us. She's prettier than us. He can talk better than we can. I don't believe in the myth of the superhuman. I just don't. I've met every superstar speaker in the world, and I've met tons and tons of high income network marketers, and they are ordinary people who've done extraordinary things in one particular area. And we can't give ourselves that excuse of, well, they're just better people than us. They have done the work to grow. And that's what it really requires. And then I would just say, follow up with the second aspect, and that is discipline. Network marketing is more than anything a disciplined business. If you talk to 2 people a day, that's going to be 730 people a year. If you close 10% of them, that's 73 people. If you close 5% of them, that's 36 and a half people, 36 very, regular sized people and one short person. If you only close, 10%, or 1%, it's 7 people. But if those 7 people bring in 7 people and you do that for a few more years, pretty soon you're in business. But you have to give it. I tell people, if you're not willing to give this opportunity 3 to 5 years, you will fail. Because remember, you're growing an oak tree, not a squash. And you've got to give it 3 to 5 years. I remember about probably 15 years ago, I pulled aside 7 high income network marketers, and I asked them a bunch of questions for advice for the beginners. And I'll never forget this guy. He was an Herbalife guy. He and his partner, I think they made $100 million in Herbalife. They took that money and they turned it into storage units. They started buying storage units. And about 4 years ago, they sold 65 storage units for $630 million. And I'll tell you an interesting story. His advice was, he said, tell these people never quit. He said, Chris, at the end of 3 years, I had nobody in my downline. And he said, not only did I have nobody in my downline, I had never had anybody in my downline. In 3 years, he did not have one single person. He said, but I believed in the company. I believed in the system. I knew that I wasn't really working it. He said, after 5 years, I was making $20,000 a month. After 7 years, I was making $60,000 a month. And then it just exploded. And of course, Herbalife is a big worldwide, so they could go worldwide and a lot of people to pull from, right? But he just said, Chris, tell them not to quit. Think about it. If he'd have quit at 3 years and said, I got nobody in my downline, he would not be. I think he's just a professional traveler now. But just think about how many people quit before payday. And this is a business that is, it's not like a traditional business where you're a Subway sandwich shop on a street corner, busy street corner. You throw the doors open and people start coming in right away because they see your sandwich shop and they're hungry, and it's right next to the convenience store. So you've got this steady flow of traffic. That's not the way network marketing works. But if you understand the nature of network marketing and you discipline yourself to do it long enough, you'll end up buying your own convenience stores and Subway sandwich shops and all the other stuff, because you'll be making more money than they do. So you have to understand the nature of network marketing, and it is a long trajectory. A Subway sandwich shop probably goes like this, whereas a network marketing business goes like this. Right? And that's the nature. It's 2 different ways of going about business. It's a leveraged income, not a traditional income.
And that's where I think some people want the hockey stick in the beginning. And if we're to go like that,
and here's the problem. And here's the problem. The problem is we go to these conferences, right? And they're not going to put somebody up there on stage. It's just kind of the nature of hype, right? They're not going to put somebody up there and go, we want to introduce you to Cheryl. Cheryl's been, disciplining herself for 6 months and she's got 6 people, right? Cheryl may end up being the top income earner someday because she's just going to be the tortoise versus the hare, right? But what they do is they always find the one guy who's been in 3 weeks and he's making $30K a month, right? It's the exception, not the rule, that we typically sell at those things, because everybody's bored if you're only putting one person a day in. Just like nobody roots for the tortoise. They always root for the hare because he's the fast one, the sexy one, the whatever. But people who really understand the nature of it, they understand that, yeah, fast is great. If it happens that way, fantastic. Good for you. But that is really the exception and not the rule. But we tend to focus on the exception and not the rule.
Well, I think that brings me right to my next question, because you do have a common theme in some of the books and the audios that I've listened to. And it's one of those things that we try to coach really a lot on with our team, is this idea of comparitis, where, that person went faster than me, they know this more than me. Or even from the other side of it, when which book was it? Because I've read all your books in like the last week, but in one of them, it talked about really fine tuning who you surround yourself by, because it's the whole idea of the crabs in the bucket, right? If one crab tries to get out, the other crabs are just innately going to pull him back in. It's just how they are. And so that idea that when people get into a home-based business, they're going to get not only attacked by people that they might have considered their closest confidants and friends. But it really kind of comes down to how do you protect yourself from that? Because I know there's people on this call that experience it. I experience it too, where you have that little voice in your head that goes, well, maybe they are right. Maybe this won't work. Or, maybe that person just has that little more, like you talked about, that doesn't really exist. But how can somebody protect themselves and kind of get the people around them that they need most in that beginning stages? Because I really think if people get past 6 months in this business, they're here for life. But most people don't get there because the little voices, as Jim Rohn says, the weeds are going to get them. That's just how it's going to be. And so our goal is to coach them that these weeds are going to get you. And then the next thing I want to kind of dive into is where you're going passion wise with this whole thing. But could you talk a little bit of how somebody might be able to protect their house as they're building it from the media and all the crazy things that are going on right now? How would you go about doing that? I probably know your answer, but I'll ask you anyway.
So is the question about comparing yourself to others, or?
So it's really about protecting yourself, protecting your mindset of whether it's comparing yourself to others or from negative people going, hey, you're not going to do this. How can you kind of pad yourself and protect yourself?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is there's an old Bible verse that says they compare themselves with themselves and they are not wise. It's never wise to compare yourself to other people. And if you think about it, if you compare yourself with people who are better than you or richer than you or better looking than you or pick your whatever blank than you, it's always going to make you feel bad, right? You're gonna be like, oh, I'm not as good as her. I'm not as rich as him. I'm not as, this, oh, woe is me, right? Because you're comparing yourself, up the food chain. If you're comparing yourself down the food chain, you're probably going, I'm better than them. I'm smarter than them. Because if they're smarter than you, then you must be smarter than everybody else, which also isn't true. So either way, you end up with envy or pride, right? And it's just it's not conducive to a healthy internal, makeup. And so they compare themselves with themselves and they are not wise is great advice. So what I suggest is another Bible verse, which is rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn, right? So if somebody gets off if they get out of the out of the starting gate really fast and they're doing well and making great money, don't go, oh, how'd they make it and how come I didn't? And instead say, that's fantastic, that's wonderful, I'm so happy for you, that's amazing. Because you know what, God has a different plan for every single one of us. And I think he probably says, look, these are folks that I'm going to put a lot of wealth into their hands, and other people I'm going to give you enough for your day by day. And I think there's an aspect in that in which, Jim Rohn always used to say, learn to be content with what you have while you work for what you want. Or something, I'm sort of paraphrasing it there, but being able to be content with what we have while we pursue all that we want. And I think that that's really important. How do we protect ourselves? I think we surround ourselves with people who have a similar worldview. You will meet a lot of arrogant people in this business, hopefully not in your company, but there's a lot of people. It's all about the flash and the cash and all that kind of stuff. And I just stay away from those folks. I wish them well, but that's not who I'm going to surround myself with. It's not who I'm going to, spend a lot of time with. I'll honor them and love them and all that, but I'm not trying to spend a lot of time with them. There's a lot of people who've done very, very well in the business who are really great, humble, loving, kind people as well. Those are the kinds of people that I, want to spend my time with and learn from and grow from. There are people like Jim Rohn who I loved to spend time with, and then there are the people that Jim Rohn warned me not to get around. And those people shall remain nameless, but you can figure it out by who I'm not having lunch with or going into business with, because even though they're wildly successful, you get burned a little bit. You can get torched a little bit. So I judge who I'm going to be around by what kind of people they are. And just some great advice is in the book we talked about, and we in other areas, seminars and things, we talked about there are three kinds of associations. There are expanded associations, limited associations, and disassociations. And I put everybody into one of those categories: expanded associations, limited associations, disassociations. Expanded associations are people you want to spend more time with because it's a win-win relationship. It's mutually beneficial. You can learn from them. You can give to them. Then there's, they make you a better person. Then there's limited associations. Limited associations, they can be people who you have to have a relationship with. Might be the person in the cubicle next to you at work who just really isn't a good person. You've got to be in a meeting or two with them every week, but you don't want to go to lunch with them or go on vacation with them. It might be your crazy uncle. You have to go to the family reunion and you have to see him at Christmas. But other than that, you're not going to spend a lot of time with him. It might just be as simple as the fact that they're fine, they're kind people, they're nice people. They're just going to a different destination than you are. And so you limit your association with them. And then there's disassociation. And disassociation are people that are going in the wrong direction. You know, Jim used to ask a series of questions. You know, the people that you surround yourself with, what do they have you thinking about? What do they have you talking about? Where do they have you going? What do they have you doing? And he's got 10 or 12, maybe even 15 questions. And the final question is, and is that okay? If you answer all those and then you say that's not okay, then you disassociate. I think most people, their closest relationships are relationships of convenience. So, you know, you'll meet somebody and you'll say, tell me about your best friend. Oh, my best friend, you know, he cusses all the time and he goes to the bars and he's always chasing women and blah, 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 blah. Well, is that a good thing? No, it isn't. Then why is he your friend? He's been my friend since the third grade. Oh, okay. So you're going to hang around with somebody who's taking you to the wrong destination simply because you've been hanging around with him and going to the wrong destination. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So you need to disassociate. That doesn't mean you call him up and say, you know what, I can't stand you. You're horrible. Don't ever call me again. It means you slowly extract yourself from that world and you do what it is that you need to do and you replace it, right? You disassociate, you limit, and then you expand. And those are the people that are going to expand your life. They're going to expand your business. They're going to expand your marriage. They're going to expand your mind and your heart and all those kinds of things. So that would be some advice that I would give in regard to that.
And that was the exact thing I wanted you to touch on. I just forgot what it was, the breakdown was. That was perfect.
I love that because it's a mentor of mine always said, you're growing together or you're growing apart. And then as you're growing in your personal growth and personal development, like some people are going to be jealous of that, envious of that, and trying to bring you back to where they're at, right? And so as you're growing forward, people don't like that sometimes. And then you have to set those boundaries with those certain people. So I love that you were touching on the different levels of that, because I have lost friendships because of me growing, relationships because of me growing, but it's a good thing because I'm growing, right? And so they're just not on the same level, and that's okay to accept that if you're really wanting to take it to the next level within yourself, right?
Yeah. I remember that, you know, the house that I talked about, I drove by this house for 21 years. It was built when I was 17 years old. The front gate was 500 feet long. It was brick pillars with wrought iron fencing, big double. I called it the Elvis gate, you know, that opened up, quarter-mile circular driveway, 1,800 bottle wine cellar, swimming pool, half-mile of riverfront, 10 acres. I mean, it was spectacular. And we moved in October. And so we hosted Thanksgiving that year. And I had a relative that showed up. And I asked my mom later, I said, you know, was this relative upset about something? And my mom said, well, this relative of yours is I think a little bit jealous. And I just thought, how sad, right? You know, I worked for 21 years. I used to stop in front of that gate every time I drove by it for 21 years. I'd say, I'm going to buy that house someday. And I bought it when I was 38, 2004. And sometimes you don't want to get what you wish for, because that house ended up almost falling into the river, and I lost tons and tons of money on that house, but it taught me some great lessons. But I remember thinking, you know, I want to be happy for someone. I remember I had a cousin of mine that I lost track of. And I remember the house. This is kind of a funny story. He lived in a normal house, and I lost track of him. I hadn't seen him in 10 or 15 years. And his mom, I lived with his mom during college for a year. And so she invited me to a barbecue. And I said, great, we'll be there. So I drove to his old house. And because it's where I had lived with his mom. He bought the house from his mom. I knock on the door and a little girl opens the door. And she said, come on in. I figured it was my cousin's daughter. So I come walking into the living room, and all of a sudden this woman in her pajamas goes, who are you? And I go, are you Steve's wife? I'm not Steve. Who are you talking about? Well, then her husband comes down. He's in his pajamas and a wife beater. And he's like, what are you doing in our house? And I'm like, whoa, is this Steve's house? And he's like, no, what are you talking about? I said, well, I used to live here and with my aunt, and my cousin bought it. And he's like, and then he said, what's the name? And I said the name. He goes, oh no, we bought this house from your cousin. I go, oh, okay. So I go out into the car and I call my aunt, and I said, and she goes, oh, I forgot to tell you, he bought a new house. So the funny thing is, he had sold his company for $200 million, and the house I pulled up to next was Gary Payton's old house, the point guard for the Seattle Supersonics, who made $200 million in the NBA. And I remember going, wow, what an amazing house. Way better than my house was. All right. But I wasn't jealous. I was happy for him. I thought, that's amazing. That's great. That's fantastic. And I could have went, no, he's got a bigger house than me. And, he's got a 3,000 bottle wine cellar, and woe is me. I don't have, and by the way, I had an 1,800 bottle wine cellar with that many bottles of wine in it. So it was completely empty. I think I used it for storage or something. So, but so anyway, you just never know. And you just got to be happy for people for what they achieve. And the more we do the woe is me because I don't have what somebody else has, it's just a trap. I mean, think about poor Bill Gates. He's not even the richest guy in the world anymore. I mean, there's somebody that's got way more money than him now. I mean, I think double the amount of money that he does. And poor guy, I don't know how he can live with himself after all that.
I'm sure he's just thinking about it and pining about how he's not number one anymore. Yeah. And that's the funny thing. I interviewed somebody, and they had been on the Forbes 500 list, like, I think it was like 20 years in a row. And I had asked him about it. He's like, I don't even read Forbes. Like it's people give all these praise and admiration to people. And most of the time, those people don't even know that they're just living their life. And that's just the way it is. And people kind of use them as an example of what.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have a friend who was number 23 on the Forbes 400 list. He was one spot above Ross Perot. Do you know where he was 1 year later? Bankrupt. He lost his 20,000 square foot mansion. He lost his G5. He lost everything. It was prosecutorial misconduct. One day he had, I think 50 or 60 FBI agents raid the place. They tore his entire company down. And about 6 weeks into his trial, some low-level FBI agent admitted that they knew he was innocent. And the whole thing got thrown out. But 3,500 people lost their jobs. He lost everything. He was broke. And I always say to myself, look, we focus so much on hoarding money and keeping our money. And I'm like, if Bill can lose $3.5 billion in a year, I don't know why I'm worried about trying to keep every nickel I have. I just live my life. I do the best I can. And I try to use wise financial strategies and things like that. But, it's a good warning to all of us. You can be number 23 richest guy in the world and have zero afterwards.
So true. And I think that's one of the things that really drew me. I really wanted to get on the phone with you as soon as I heard what you're doing and then researched a little bit. And the fellowship really kind of spoke to me because, one of the reasons that we decided to partner with Zalevo was because of their core foundation, their principles. And so when you have a principle-based foundation, all that other stuff can be built on top of that, just like what you just said. You can go from the number 23 on the list to zero. Depending on the person you are, you could just bounce right back from it, or you could go lower. And the biggest challenge for us a lot is finding people to surround ourselves with that are kind of on the same level. And that's why I think we like network marketing, because you tend to be around people that want to go to that next level. They're looking to climb that rung. But with your group, I think it really it's another missing piece to our puzzle, at least, because our faith is very important to us. And if you're on this call and this doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. This is just about something that really resonated with us. We wanted Chris to come on and really share where he's come from over the last 20, 30 years, and now getting to a point where it's time for that next chapter of creating a fellowship inside this industry that I think is kind of aching for it, and going, we need to be around people that want to lift us higher than we are, and not out of because it's going to benefit them. That happens a lot in this industry too. Sometimes the only people you help are the people in your downline or in your organization. And this company is very different too, because we're doing everything for everybody under one umbrella. And that's why I really wanted you to come on and share a little bit of the fellowship tonight as well as we close out tonight. Maybe we'll get some Q&A here before we bounce. But just share a little bit what the fellowship is, how that kind of came to be, and where it's growing into, because it's unique. It's not a profit center for you. It's a passion.
No, it's there is no profit center for me. It is inside of a 501c3. And I don't take any money from it, and so it is truly a passion project for me. So if you think about the network marketing industry, one of the things, and I've been sort of on the outside looking in, or at least on the outer fringes looking in as a speaker. I have lots of contact in it, but this is the network marketing industry. Yeah, this company, this company, this company, this company, this company. Don't talk to the person from that company because they might steal you. Don't talk to the person from that company because they might tell you their company's better than this. And I just started thinking, what would happen if, but with faith, that's our common denominator, right? And so remember, rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn, right? Wouldn't it be great if we saw somebody in a different company and said, man, you found your home. I'm so happy for you. It sounds like the perfect company for you. Like there's just certain companies that I would never fit into because I'm just not interested in that. But it doesn't matter. You can make money. No, I'm just not interested in it. No, you gotta come. You gotta, but what would happen if we said to our brothers and sisters, I think that's your spot, right? That's where you should be. When I was a pastor, people would show up at our church and I'd be like, I don't think this is a good fit for you. Most pastors are like, I just need to get everybody I can, right? And bring them on my team. I was like, I don't think this is going to be good fit for you. Particularly, when we were young, we were all young families with little kids. And we'd have older folks come in and I'd say, this might not be, but then we had some of them said, no, we'd love to invest in younger people. Oh, okay, great. Come on in, right? But I wasn't looking to just get everybody. So one of my dreams is to take away some of that suspicion that exists in the industry. And I think people of faith can do that because we have a bigger thing that we serve than our own individual business. So we started the Fellowship of Christian Network Marketers 6 or 7 months ago. It started really about a year and a half ago when I asked one couple, I said, is there anything like this, like an association of Christians in network marketing? And they're like, no, but that's a fantastic idea. So I started asking around, and then I started asking a lot of key people in the industry. We have an advisory board. They all serve for free. And they're some of the top people in the industry. I think the number one female income earner in the entire world is on our board, her and her husband. We have the number 2 guy at one business. We have the number 1 person in another business, but none of that is really the important thing. The important thing is they have a strong faith and they're willing to serve. So we have a private Facebook group. When you register and sign up for the group, you get a free private Facebook group. We have some of the top leaders in the industry every single day donating their time, giving great content. Simon Chan, I don't know if you guys know Simon, MLM Nation, the biggest podcast in the world. He kicks us off every Sunday morning with a 5 to 10 minute little teaching. Then the next day, we've got a guy named AJ Jordan. He's a young African-American guy in a company that's 95% African-American. That man is just filled with joy every minute you've ever seen him, right? And these are folks contributing their time, effort, and energy to inspire and encourage people from all companies. And so we put it together, and we've got a one-time registration. It's a lifetime membership. You get like $120 worth of books and audio programs. When you do, we ship them to you and the whole thing. And but one of my real goals, we have a guy named Ed, and Ed grew up on the mission field. And now he's in the top 10 in one of his in the company he's in. And so we've already decided that when travel opens up again, one of our goals is to do a missions project somewhere in the third world with 50 networkers from different companies. And wouldn't that be amazing for our industry if we could say, we're going to forget that you're in that company and you're in that company and you're in that company, and we're just going to go dig wells in Uganda, or we're going to go, help an orphanage in the Philippines, or we're going to go build homes in Mexico, because our key common denominator is not our business, it's our faith. And I'll tell you what, you're going to be in your faith a lot longer, eternity, than you are in your business. I mean, at the most, this business is going to last you 30, 40, 50 years. If you're young, it might last you 50 years if you stay in the same company. If you're old, it might be 5 or 10 years, but you're going to be in your faith for a long, 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 long time. Zig Ziglar always used to say more people spend more time planning their vacation than they do planning their eternity. And so we exist to encourage people. We call ourselves your family for faith and freedom. And faith is first, and then your freedom, your financial freedom, your family, and all those kinds of things. And we'd love to have you join. It's $147 one-time lifetime payment. When we start doing meetings, you'll get discounts and all those kinds of things. But we also have, if that's a stretch for you, we have a $9 a month where you can just join up, cancel anytime you want as well. But I'm excited about it. We've been going for a few months. We've got about 100 people already. We also are starting to we did at the very beginning of the year, we did a 7-day challenge. And we are starting, in fact, we're starting this week. On Wednesday, we're doing our kickoff. We're doing what we're calling 90-day adventure. When I was a pastor, every year we did a 90-day adventure, and we picked a theme. And so one year we did service. For 90 days, we were going to do service. I've always kind of done crazy things. We would actually cancel church and just say, go do a service project. And then next Sunday, we're going to come back and people are going to tell what service project they did. And they're like, you're not going to have church? Nope, we're not going to have church. We did a 90-day tithing once. And I said, look, I know a lot of you probably don't tithe or you want to, but it's a stretch for you. So here's what we're going to do. For 90 days, I want you to tithe 10% of your income. And I'll tell you what, at the end of 90 days, I have a money back guarantee. You come to me at the end of 90 days and say, we tithed for 90 days. And I got to tell you, it's a bunch of hogwash. I want my money back. I'll give you your money back. We did that many, many times. And then we ended up just turning it into just the overall overarching thing. If you'll tithe at church and you come to us and say, it's all a bunch of hogwash, I want my money back, I'll stroke you a check. Do you know how many times we gave money back? Never. You know why we never gave money back? Because nobody ever asked it back. You know why? Because God is faithful. That's why. And so we're doing one this time. It's called the 90-Day Adventure in Prayer. And the first time we ever did the 90-Day Adventure in Prayer, some people who are now dear lifelong friends of mine, they showed up for church. They were sort of, I don't know what I believe about God. I think there's a God, but I just don't know much about him. They had spent, this was 1993, 94, maybe 96, but they showed up on the very first Sunday of the 90-Day Adventure. They had spent over $100,000 trying to get pregnant, in vitro, all this kind of stuff. Long story short, 6 weeks in, they're pregnant. And that boy, Jacob, is now a college graduate, as is his little sister, and also a college graduate. So, just see a lot of great things happening. The reason we do it for 90 days, we want to give people the opportunity to really see God work. So if you're interested, would love to have you participate. You can go to Networkers Fellowship. It's plural, networkersfellowship.com. You can see all the people on the advisory board. You can see what you get when you sign up. And it's all right there. You have access to me anytime. You'll have my cell phone number. You have my email address. I really kind of view myself as I sort of am, the pastor to the industry, and want to make myself available and those kinds of things. But I'm super excited about it, and we're off to a great start, surrounded with a lot of great people.
Awesome.
Wow. Talk about gold.
Yeah. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
What I would love to do now, I mean, because we're at the top of the hour. I know I kind of booked you for an hour, but I would love to see if there's anybody on here. You can unmute Jill if you want to unmute. Jill worked with you in the past in some way, shape, or form, so she knows of you. When we kind of she is basically the first person in Zalevo, and so she kind of, we partnered up with her, and she was so excited to hear that you were on. So I would love to see if she has anything to add to this or any questions she has, and we can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to take any questions. I'm totally
awesome. Well, Chris, what a pleasure. This is so fun. I worked with you a little bit a few years ago in the personal development magazine with David Mickey Evans and Scott Evans, and like a long time ago. So it's good to talk to you again. But oh my goodness, this has been incredible. I mean, like James and Angel had said, our company is a super special company. In fact, down to our incentive trips, our mission trips. So we just got back from painting an orphanage in Mexico. So instead of sitting on the beaches in Maui or whatever, people are trying to rank advance to go on a mission trip. So I love that we are aligned in so many, areas with you. And I can't wait to become part of the Networkers Fellowship and just how faith-based you are. And what a blessing you are to the world. So thank you for being here with us tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. No, it's incredible what you guys are doing. And it's really interesting to me to see it for a long time. I mean, we've always had a few that were overtly Christian and very, we are a Christian company and those kinds of things. But there's been a lot of Christians at the top, but the company wasn't necessarily faith-based or whatever and that kind of thing. But I'm seeing more and more of those pop up where people are saying, you know what, we're going to be who we are. And we're going to let the chips fall where they may. And we may not be the best fit for everybody. And that's okay. And what I see is God really blesses them. And when I speak at these, sometimes I feel like I'm more preaching at church than anything. And it's a lot of fun. And so it sounds like that's kind of exactly where your company is.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Awesome. Any other questions or feedback, or anyone to just jump in? Feel free to ask a question. I know, Andy, you're probably dying to ask a question. It's not a Zoom without Andy asking a question. We love it.
You don't have to.
But you don't have to. You don't want to.
I was waiting. I was being polite. Chris, it's been fantastic hearing from you and I would say learning from you. In the short period of time that you've been talking, I've had a lot of ahas. I think one of the things that I'm still trying to figure out, I hopped on early like Jill did, and but without Jill's wild resource of experience. And so I'm still trying to figure out how do I really work my business like it's a business, like seriously work it without, what's the word? I don't want to use people. I don't want to go through people. I want to lift up every interaction I have, but I have a little bit of time in the beginning of my day and a little bit of time at the end of my day. So how do I balance those things where I want to work my business? I want to, and I'm willing to grind, but I don't want to grind souls. if you catch my meaning.
Yeah, there's an old saying. I want to make sure I get it right. Somebody said, if you think you might be too drunk to drive, you're probably not too drunk to drive. Because the drunk driver says, I can drive, what does it matter to me, right? If you're saying, I wonder if I've had a little too much to drink. Well, you may have had a little too much to drink, but at least you're not, right? So the very fact that you say, I don't want to use people, it tells me you're not going to use people. And so I would say, just go for it. You're not going to use people. The other thing that popped into my mind as you were saying that, I gave a speech once in Pasadena. It's funny how you remember these things. It was in Pasadena, and I think it was for Arbonne, and it was in a high school auditorium, and it was the dead of summer, and there was no air conditioning. That's what I remember about that event. I remember who it was, where it was, how hot it was, and I remember one of the other speakers. His name was Tom something, and he does a lot of network marketing speeches. I can't remember his last name now, but I remember him doing this thing where he pulled out some Excedrin or some aspirin or some Advil or Tylenol or something like that. And he had a little jar of it, and he just went to the person in the front row at the in the front corner seat on the aisle, and he said, would you like some Tylenol? No, I'm good. He went to the next person. Do you need a Tylenol? No, I'm good. And he got to about the seventh person. They said, I am so glad. I've been sitting here with a splitting headache. He goes, great. Here you go. Here's a couple Tylenol. And he said, that's what network marketing is. I didn't berate the first woman because she didn't want my Tylenol. I didn't beat her up and say, you better take the Tylenol. I just offered it. No, okay. Offered it. No, okay. Until I found somebody who needed it, and then I gave it to them, right? I think that's a lot of what network marketing is. If you love it and you believe in it, you're going to want it. Why is it that we'll go see a movie and we will tell everybody about that movie, and we don't go, oh, I hope I don't offend them. I mean, I'm telling them about a movie that I saw. Maybe they don't like movies. Maybe they don't want movies. Maybe they don't have the money to go to the movie. No, we go, oh, you got to see this movie. But then when it comes to our business that we think can change the world and change our lives, we're like, oh, I don't want to tell them about that because they might get offended, right? No, you just offer it to them. You do the same thing with a restaurant. You gotta go try this restaurant. You don't say, maybe they don't eat. Maybe they're not hungry. We just tell them about great things, right? And I can see that's all by the very fact that you don't want to burn people tells me you're not going to burn people. Right? It's the people who are like, I'm never going to burn people. They just got people dying left and right behind them. Right? So I think you're good to go. The very fact you're asking that question tells me you're okay.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you, man.
For sure.
Awesome. One more question. If we've got one more question out there, come off mute and we'll take one more and then we'll call it a night.
That was so good.
That was awesome.
So true. Don't make it awkward.
Well, I want to make a comment why someone is thinking about what they have. Chris, thank you for helping everybody on this call dream again. Like when you were talking about driving by that house a million times and saying that is going to be my house someday. Like I just started and I train on vision boards. Like I know all about this kind of stuff, but it just got me dreaming again. And I have a whole list of things that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so possible. Like, it's just so fun. So thank you for helping us dream again. And my favorite quote from tonight is be content with what I have while I'm working for what I want. Yeah. Because I tend to be like, oh, this isn't perfect or that, instead of just being grateful every single day for where I'm at, what I've been given. And I just tend to not do that all the time. So thank you. Thank you.
Can I tell you my new vision board thing?
Yeah.
Okay, here's my new vision board thing. I've been telling people that I haven't done a ton of speeches, obviously, because we aren't doing events anymore, really. But here's my new vision board thing. And it comes from that old Zig Ziglar quote. You can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want out of life. So why do we put up our vision board? We put it because it's what we want out of life. Well, how are you going to get that? You're going to get that by helping other people get what they want out of life. So here's what I tell people now. Find your 5 people or 10 if you have a lot of wall space and ask them to make a copy of their vision board and you put it on your wall. And now you start going, I'm going to get Susie that house, and I'm going to help Joe get that car, and I'm going to help Tom go on that mission trip, and I'm going to help Billy get that vacation home, and I'm going to help Martha get her children into that college. And if you focus on that, guess what happens? Next thing you know, if they're getting their houses and their cars and their college educations and all that, what happens to your vision board? All of a sudden, you're going to look at your vision board and go, wow, I just got all my vision board. And I've been doing this for about a year. Get 5 of your people to give you their vision board and start going, how do I help Martha, Tom, Sue, and Joan get their vision board? Because if I can help them get their vision board, mine is just a de facto end result.
Oh my gosh, my heart is beating so fast. For so long, I've had my leaders tell me what their goal is for the month. And have you seen the Christian movie War Room? Like, have you seen War? Okay. Yeah. So I have this war room, I put it on my wall, but I've never thought of taking their entire vision board and like praying over, their visions and their dreams. Oh, I'm emotional. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it popped into my head about a year and a half ago, and I just went, oh, I love this. because all of us network marketers quote that all the time, right? You can have anything you want in life. You just help enough other people get what they want out of life. But what would happen if we had what they want in life right in front of us every single time we walked into our office?
I have never heard that and have God bumps all over me right now. I'm sure everyone I've been seeing people like raising their hands, like, yes, preach.
Yeah.
That is so good. I'm still doing that.
Well, Jill does vision board trading, so we'll have
That's
her
what
do
she
a vision
said.
board
That's
trading.
why I brought it up. When she said that, I'm like, oh, I got to tell her my vision board thing.
I love that. Thank you.
So good.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
is incredible.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Well, Chris, I think we got a ton of value from this, and I'm just so blessed that you were able to carve out some time for us and be able to be on here. And again, everyone, go check out the fellowship, see if it's a good fit for you, because like Chris said, like, you think this is good, you know, this is all the time, every day inside that group is like-minded people. And so you get to be around that and go check it out. Go check out all Chris's books. I mean, 12 Pillars, when you signed for the fellowship, that was what I saw. I was like, oh, you get all his stuff. And so you'll get a lot of things that you don't need to then go purchase again. But if you're not going to join the fellowship, just go on Amazon and go Chris Widener and then pick a book. I would go with 12 Pillars, Angel Inside, Lasting Impact. Those three, go for those. And you really can. They're simple. They're so easy to read, but so deep and really challenging you to kind of go to the next level and whatever.
It's somewhere between War and Peace and a coloring book.
Right.
It's like right in the middle. That's what my books are. Nobody's ever going to accuse me of having gone to MIT by reading my books, but we've sold a few of them over the years. But and especially if you think about the Networkers Fellowship, we're starting this 90-day adventure of prayer on Wednesday, and if you get in there, you'll see the posts on it, and it'd be fun to have you join us, and just amazing what God will do in 90 days.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you for everybody joining us tonight.
Have a wonderful. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. God bless everybody.
Bye.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Chris. You're amazing. Thanks, guys, for setting this up.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kisses, everybody.
Thank you,
Blessings.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love you all.
Thank you.